On this episode of Real Talks, foster parents are going to talk about how people who aren't in the trenches may say and do things that aren't really smart. Let's talk a little bit about how friends and family acted around your foster children. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, in the beginning, it's kind of like, everybody's really excited for them. They want to see them.
But also a little, standoffish. Like, this is great.
But I think, our friends and family were great for the most part as far as...
But I think in the beginning, everybody's more guarded. Like, even, I would say your mom, who is the most, loving and nurturing mom, she was just a little standoffish and guarded in the beginning because she just was uncertain of what...
Yeah. I think people might wonder, why are you doing this? Is this a good time to do it? Like, how is it going to work for them? And then once our family and our people were a part of it, is like they fell in love with
right.
the
So you
kids
talked
too.
about his mom at first, but then over time,
almost before, and
I
then
think
she
before,
met
really, once
them,
she met them, yes.
and it was like I just remember seeing her holding the baby and just start weeping, and then you're like, she's all in with us. Like now awesome. That's her grandbaby now. That's awesome. It was that for one moment, but before we had the first placement, she was more guarded, standoffish, wasn't sure what her role was going to be, how she was going to feel. My mom too. My mom's a little bit more of a loose cannon, but she ended up loving them too. And I just remember her same thing. Once she held them and saw them, she was crying too and was all in. And it was a new grandbaby.
How did you guys handle? Did you have any situations where people, even maybe out of curiosity, they want to know information about the case? It's confidential. You're not allowed to share. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I think it's natural for people to be curious, and I think asking questions, we are never offended or upset about people asking questions, because the same thing, until it's normal, we didn't know people that did foster care, and so I didn't really have people to ask questions, and so I would encourage questions, but at the same time, to be respectful for the kids and their parents.
Well, our situation too was that our foster kids did not look like us. So it was a pretty clear indication off the bat that these are not my biological children.
They were black, we were white.
Which in some cases,
obvious.
though, I think we've done respite for several white babies, and they look like us, skin color, and nobody knows when we're out in public, nobody's asking or looking or staring really, because they look like me. Nobody thinks it's differently. So I think that was one of the big things, with questions, that people have more questions, strangers have more questions.
You can use it as a opportunity.
And we did, and I was never, I know some people get frazzled or upset or offended by strangers, and I never did, because a lot of times I want to believe that most people are coming from a place of innocence.
Right.
And so that's how I handled all the questions that I would get at Kroger.
Okay,
or
one thing.
wherever.
Did anybody ever say anything dumb?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of
you don't even realize that
things people
you don't even realize that it's dumb. People are trying to be kind. They're
we believe that they're trying to be kind.
Yes,
So
I really think so. They'll say, "Oh, those kids are so lucky.
Lucky
so lucky to have you."
Right.
And it's are they lucky
just
though?
such a great person. I could never do what you're doing, and I'm like, "What do you think I'm doing?"
Or if you had that day where you were thinking of not doing it anymore, and then they said that to you.
My kids, my favorite was though, I would just love them too much. I couldn't give them up. And it's that's what you're supposed to do. It's
you're because I hate them. You're right, and
it's gonna be super easy for me to
I'm a cold-blooded person, and I'm just gonna give them back and not flinch once.
So I would, but once again, I would take that from the point of they're just trying to encourage. They don't know, they don't understand, and just never really jump. It would never be frustrated with somebody that would say that, but just try to assume the best, kind of talk them through it.
I remember one time though, this woman, I think it was in the checkout line at Target probably, where it just always was in free time, and she said was it drugs? And just out of the blue, and I was like, huh? It just caught me by surprise, and just a question, was it drugs? It's just the dogs are
Did
terrible.
you still assume the best?
I tried. Where it was just this flustered
right.
huh? No, what? No, nothing with drugs, and just kept going.
Right.
What are you talking about?
So what would be your advice to people who are nervous about if somebody's going to say something off the cuff or dumb? What advice would you give them?
I just think you can't take people. You can't take things to be offended or to take things like that really offensive.
Which in this day and age is
I think anybody could use that advice
all the time.
Right.
So that's just to the world.
And
right
just
now.
use it as an opportunity to what do you want to impart on them in this interaction? It's if you're offended or if you're mad or if you're talking down to them about how they should talk about foster care, I think they're probably whoa. But if you look at it as an opportunity to say this is why we love, this is why we do foster care, and kids need people to love them too much and still do it, and that was kind of my.
And it's not all drugs. That's not the only reason kids land themselves in foster care or families find themselves in these situations. People just assume there's only one reason that a biological family can lose their children or mess up, and I don't know. It's just an opportunity for education, and I feel like I was always pretty relaxed about it, and that's my advice.
A little more worked up than I would because
after the fact, not I'm.
Can you believe?
Fake to everybody's face, and then I can be flustered and mad about the questions and being stopped. But what do you want to impart them in that one interaction? If that's all you get with this person to teach them about foster care, about loving God and why we're serving and do it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
What do I want that quick interaction to leave with them? And